What was your finest moment of revenge? I ground up laxatives and tainted all my kitchen fridge food with it to figure out which of my 7 roommates was eating all my food. While I survived off a secret stash in my mini fridge, I found out who did it. Very quickly. This may seem small, but it was the most satisfying thing I have ever done. When I was in the 7th grade, I sat behind a jerk who hated me and enjoyed being annoying. Every single goddamn day he would lean back in his chair and hit the front of my desk. Over and ever again. If I was trying to write something, he would do it even harder. So one day I decided enough was enough. And in the middle of a lesson he started again. So I waited. And right as he was leaning his chair back fast, trying to knock my desk hard, I pulled it back. Without my desk behind him, his chair tipped right over and he hit the ground hard. I can still clearly remember him whispering "you bitch" beneath the laughter of the whole class and the teacher yelling at him to get up. The look on his face was a mixture of shock, embarrassment and pure rage as he looked up at me from the floor. Bastard never f-ked with me again. Recently posted this. But, long story short, and kid I was friends with hit me in the balls 3 times in one night. He then called me a wee baby and got in my face. He tried to make me flinch by half swinging at me. I didn't flinch, but instead headbutted him with everything I had. Crushed his nose. Blood pouring out of his face. I had a tiny cut in the center of my forehead, with one line of blood running down my face. I looked f-king psychotic. But badass. Also, FCKU for that, David. When I was 12 years old, a kid beat me up at a birthday party for reasons unknown. 4 years later, the kid is a pitcher, and a very good one at that, for his school in the playoffs. I was playing for the other team. After going 0-3 to start the game, I hit a walk-off home run off of him to advance to the next round. Kid actually started crying on the mound. I don't think I've ever had a bigger smile than I did in that moment. Still have the ball in my apartment at college. Being better than him at something he loves. Best form of revenge right there. During our 100 multiple choice law exam, I wrote all my answers on the original exam page and colored in wrong answers on the Scantron sheet. The girl who copied me since day one thought she was going to pass this exam worth 30% of our final mark. She looked over and copied almost each of my Scantron answer, then guessed a few, handed it in, and left for the winter break. I erased all my old answers, put the correct answers in, handed it in, and left. I got 71/100 and barely managed to pass that class. I'll find out what she got on Tuesday when I maybe see her with a gun at my locker. When I was 11 years old, I was bullied by a 12-year-old boy. He would steal things from my lunch every day. I got sick of it and decided to do something about it. One day, I brought a super hot pepper in my lunch and pretended to be really excited about it. Sure enough, the boy comes over, snatches it from my hand and pops it in his mouth. He practically exploded in pain, writhing around the floor, unable to handle the heat. I calmly looked at him and told him that drinking a nice glass of cold water would help immensely. He did so. This promptly magnified the pain 100x. He never stole food from me again. I regret nothing. I guess you could say he was beating the shit out of the man who abused and beat my mother for 6 years. 7 years later and she still has no idea. Edit. So my grandfather was driving and an obviously drunk man threw a rock and shattered his windshield. My grandfather talked to him and told him, if you give me your real number, I'll only have you pay for half of the windshield or we can figure something out. The guy turned out to give him a fake number. A year later, my grandfather picks up a guy from Park and Ride, carpooling. He happens to be the man that shattered his windshield. They're driving on the freeway and the guy doesn't recognize him. He's being rude and talking on his phone. My grandpa asks to see his phone and throws it out the window. The guy freaks out and my grandpa goes, "Remember me?" He then made him get out of the car. When I was a kid, probably 4 or 5 years old, I was watching Dumbo with my neighbor. The elephants on Parade Part was scary as all hell to me back then. And I peed my pants. My neighbor told everyone in my pre-K class and would not stop calling me the pants peer for weeks. Finally, one day I slept over at her house and took a pair of her pants out her closet, put them on, and peed in them. I woke her up to show her. And that's the story of how I became the 2-time pants peer. TL. I got revenge on a girl by putting her pants on and peeing in them. Kid logic. There was a guy in high school who was a complete ass to me. For a couple years, I decided to exact revenge via magazine. I went to the school library and pulled subscription cards out of every female magazine I could get my hands on. And a few strange ones like Psychology Today and Architectural Digest. And filled out cards in his name. With his address. And checked bill me later. I overheard him complaining a few months later how he kept getting all these magazines he never ordered and it was getting irritating. Score. Driving to drop someone off, my radar detector went off. Saw a cop sitting in a parking lot. Dropped off my friend and headed back. The whole way some ass is tailgating me. Speed limit's 40. I'm doing 45 and he's so close I can't see his headlights. We come up to a traffic circle and he tries to pass me on the right. I sped up and he kept trying. We hit about 80-90 with him on the shoulder. Come up to the crest of a hill and I know the cop is right on the other side. I hit the brakes and he flew up over the hill. Had to be doing 90 in a 40. I even stopped to let the cop out of the parking lot. Most satisfying thing ever. Signed out of all devices on Netflix. That'll show her. When I was in 4th grade, I was pushed around a lot by a kid who thought he was hot shitty. I told my parents. I told my teacher. They told the teacher and the principal. No avail. So, one day on the stairs he kicks the back of my shoe making it pop off and fall. I turn and punch him in the stomach. He keeled over and rolled, fell down about 5-6 stairs to the next landing. I didn't even get in trouble. And even though he is still an asshole, he never dared to touch me again. Someone at my apartment complex kept stealing our newspaper. One Sunday I got up very early. Brought in the Sunday paper. Took it out of its colored bag. Took the Saturday paper that I had filled full of baby powder. Put it in the Sunday paper bag and put it back outside the door. No one ever stole my paper again. Apparently people shitty and piss on each other a lot more than I thought. Well, it's more common than using a poison-tipped spear in a duel to the death to exact revenge on the monster of a man who killed your sister and her children. This isn't that great. But I worked as a contractor helping IT set up hardware for a branch of hospitals. Almost everyone was easy to get along with. But one of the contractors treated me like I was an idiot because I was the only one there without any formal IT training. It was a daily explanation of something very simple that I already understood. Okay. C-dubs too. You know how to put a USB in, right? Laughs, right. Well. Okay. But just in case you forgot. Let me show you. Dude. We did not have time for this ego trip bullshit. I just kept my mouth shut and worked my ass off for the length of the contract. A few months later, I was rehired by the same IT team. They wanted me to go through the previous contractors we had that summer and pick out which ones to help out with our project. Guess who didn't get hired? This one comes to mind because I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was out snowblowing the driveway one day. Some dude who is a friend of my sister's walks up to me and throws a snowball at me. He then gave that look like, "What are you gonna do about it, man?" and laughed, putting his hands up as if to go on. Dude, do you not see this large snow moving device I am pushing around? Only took several seconds to completely coat him in snow. And the look of defeat on his face was glorious. There was the kid in JR. That was always in my shitty. Not a bully. but just 2 parts dickhead and 1 part bitch. Constantly trolling me. Following me around talking shitty. I tried turning the other cheek. Being nice and shitty like that. But it just was not working. Fast forward to high school. We are both on the wrestling team. I'm like 1 weight class above him. So we had lots and lots of close contact and he was still being a dick. Double leg takedown. Scooped that shitty head up in the air and dented the mat with him. Coach got pissed and made me do extra cardio after practice. Felt really fking good. My first real boyfriend. We kissed instead of just holding hands. Kissed another girl and dumped me for her when I was a freshman in high school. She had actively pursued him although she knew he had a girlfriend. So I blamed her rather than him. I know. Close bracket. Fast forward 4 years. I was a volleyball player throughout college. In the off season I played in a city women's league and a co-ed league as an outside hitter. My team played a new team with a familiar face. She didn't recognize me, different high schools. But I immediately recognized her. My team's setter kept giving me amazing sets and I kept slamming the ball over the net. Just waiting for my shot. Finally. She was in the back row and my setter set me up. I hit the ball and the boyfriend stealer stepped into the hit. It bounced off her foot. And went straight up into her face. And broke her nose. Telling a group of baseball bullies that were picking on my younger brother that Snape kills Dumbledore in Half-Blood Prince after realizing they had all just started it. Edit. Thanks for the gold. This is more petty revenge but yeah. A few years back. My 15-year-old cousin was staying over at my place which I shared with my boyfriend at the time. Her parents were on vacation in Cuba for a few weeks. While she was with us. We had to make all of her food. She couldn't cook and waited for me or my boyfriend to come home. Otherwise she would only eat chips or popcorn. She wouldn't even make a sandwich. One day, she updated her Facebook status which was a whiny complaint about how bored she was, she had free reign to go out, and how weird I was. I guess she forgot I have her on Facebook. It really pissed me off since I made all of her meals and tried my best to keep her company. That night, when I was making her a turkey sandwich, I took my revenge. I used the end slices of the bread loaf to build the sandwich and the bitter white part of a romaine lettuce leaf. I also put too much mayo on it. She ate that sandwich. And she had a look of annoyance on her face. But there was nothing she could do. Bitch. When I was 16, I was heartbroken by a girl who basically decided to FCK someone else after we were in love and I just used it as motivation to eat better and lose weight. I saw her a couple years later and it looks like she gained as much as I lost. 80 lbs. Felt so good. My college roommate had a sketchy friend he would invite over. My textbook was stolen the weekend before my final. I went to the bookstore and found the book. I had notacards that I used as bookmarks still in the book. I texted my roommate's friend and made up a story that the bookstore was going to press charges unless he gave the money back. He confessed over the phone and told me to meet him at his place to get the money. When I got there he was smoking a bong. After taking the money I poured the bong over his head and told him to never come to my place ever again. You should have cracked him over the head with it. Bong. About a month ago I found out my coworker, a good friend of mine, was cheating with my GF at the time. Teamed up with few other work buddies and decided to teach him a lesson. We went to a Korean mart and bought 2 frozen raw fishes. With the help of one of my buddies I was able to get hold of his car keys. So we hid one of those 2 fish we bought earlier in a place which would be pretty obvious and easy to notice and we duct taped the other fish underneath his passenger side seat. He did find one of the fish and was pretty mad with us. Here's the sweet revenge though. He kept complaining that he just couldn't get rid of the fish smell from his car even though he cleaned his car with shampoo and has used all kinds of car scent. I quit that work a few days after. So I don't know if he found the other fish yet. We don't talk anymore. Ex cheated on me. Moved out but moved out slowly over time. Which meant I still lived with a lot of her stuff. Some of her clothes were left in the closet. I cut teeny tiny corners off of every sleeve, but barely enough to be noticeable. You'd have to think you were going insane to notice it. But then again, over time, each sleeve did look somewhat off. She eventually asked me about it months later. I denied everything. I regret nothing. Driving home around 2 in the morning. 2 cars ahead of me. One is clearly giving the other car a hard time. Tailgating him. Cutting him off. Windows open and he's yelling "Tame other guy." I catch up at the light and see a scared older man, 70 plus, getting verbally cussed out by this kid. Now, I'm totally sober and I know that cops hang out in the back of the parking lot at work. Hep. There were security guards on their off hours. I get he punk's attention and he starts harassing me. 1 mile to go. Cussing at me. Trying to cut me off. I pull into the parking lot. He follows. Whip down to the back and yep. There's the cop. Lights come on. Both of us get pulled over. Other guy is screaming and I only have to explain for 30 seconds what happened. I leave the scene like I did my good deed for the day. TLDR. Saved old man from being harassed. Cops pull over and arrest the right guy. My ex-fiancée walked out on me a week before the wedding. I later married her, a great girl. Became much wealthier. And about to have a kid. Meanwhile, I heard she's still living in her parents' apartment and is actively looking online for dates. The best revenge is living a better life without her. And that is what I did. Late to the party. But here's mine. In high school, one of my best friends started dating my ex-boyfriend the day after we broke up. Which happened to be my 16th birthday. So then and there I decided to ruin her sweet 16. I just wasn't sure how. Fast forward 3 months. She planned an extravagant birthday party and played hooky from school the Friday before the big party to prepare. This was my opportunity. I told everyone at school that she had gotten the flu and was postponing the party, hence why she wasn't in school. We were neighbors so everyone bought it. The next day she got all dolled up. Arrived at her sweet 16 party in a large rented ballroom only to spend the entire party with her mom and little sister. Not one person showed up. Looking back, it was terrible and mean. But to a 16-year-old girl, I felt she broke sacred girl code. And that's never okay. TL. DR. A birthday for a birthday leaves the whole world sad. Edit. Great. My highest comment is about me being a total bitch. Called out the teacher who told me I would fail her class and needed to deal with not succeeding in my valedictorian speech. Best suck it moment of my life. Joke's on you. She saw your potential but was concerned about your lack of motivation. So she said the exact thing that she thought would make you succeed. She played you like a puppet. My senior year in college, my housemate went from being my best friend to a cold-hearted arsehole who was mean to my dog. So I peed in his mouthwash. There was a teacher that I hated in middle school and he hated me just as much. One day I noticed that one of the magazines in our classroom had his address on it. I wrote it down and waited until summer vacation, so it would be less suspicious. I went to Borders and got a bunch of magazine subscription inserts and had a close friend who went to another school fill them out with his information. I checked the bill me later and sent them out. When I got back to school the next year, I could tell he suspected me but couldn't prove it, and I was happy because I didn't have any classes with him anymore. Ah. The classic sign your enemies up for magazine subscriptions revenge. What am I going to do with 40 subscriptions to Vibe? Once I made a real witty reply on Reddit. Caught my ex cheating on me with another guy. I took all her pants in a half size. A friend of mine had been seriously third-wheeling me with a certain girl that I was into. I asked why and he said it was fair game. May the best man win, so I decided to find him another suitable partner. I went on to Omegle, typed gay into preferences. Met a slew of lovely middle-aged men who wanted my kick and thus gave them his. He received pictures of asses. Dicks and 44-year-old men wanting to let daddy see you. In my eyes, justice was served finally. No regrets. No regrets. Not one letter. I was once staying at a friend's house in the 7th grade. His older sister thought it would be a good idea to embarrass him in front of me by cracking an egg over his head from the top of the balcony when we got home from school. My friend was infuriated and woke me up at 5:00 AM the next morning. Went into the kitchen and started whisking a bowl of eggs. 5 minutes and 5 eggs later we went downstairs to his sister's room where he poured the whole bowl of whisked egg onto her face. A look of horror as she woke up with her face covered in egg was probably one of the funnest things I have seen in my entire life. To this day she has never FK'd with him again.